July in Nevada is brutal. 46 degrees in the shade, and something didn't smell right, literally. It all started in the quiet suburban neighborhood of Summerlin, Las Vegas. On a suffocating hot day in July, several residents from Willow Creek Lane walked into the local police precinct. Sweaty, agitated, and all saying the same thing. There's something dead out there. It reeks. It's not a skunk. It's worse. At first, Officer Clarence Miller, a 28-year veteran with the Las Vegas Metro Police Department, shrugged it off. Probably a dead raccoon, maybe a stray dog, he muttered. After all, weird smells weren't rare in 46 degrees Fahrenheit heat. But when enough neighbors complained, the department sent a patrol car to investigate. When officers arrived at the reported site, a small vacant lot behind a cul-de-sac, they knew instantly, this wasn't roadkill. The smell was thick, clinging, unmistakable. Something was dead. And it was human. Near a dried-out patch of earth, they found a shallow hole, half covered with plywood and old weeds. The flies were a giveaway. When they pried it open and looked inside, they froze. There, inside, partially decomposed, was the body of a young girl. Her arms were folded unnaturally. The skin had started to melt under the brutal sun. This was no accident. This was murder. Within hours, crime scene investigators were on site. Tape went up. News crews circled. The entire community was in shock. And within 24 hours, the case was all over Nevada news. Body of girl found in Summerlin, police say foul play suspected. But the most chilling part? The story didn't start here. It started years ago, with a man named Walter Adams, a retired church deacon in his late 60s. And a decision that changed his life forever. After the shocking discovery of the young girl's decomposing body in a shallow grave behind Willow Creek Lane, detectives needed answers. And quickly. The girl's body was in an advanced state of decomposition, but forensic investigators were able to determine one thing. She was around 22 years old. Her wrists and ankles were bound, and there were deep bruises on her neck, consistent with strangulation. Worse yet, she was 5 months pregnant when she died. 2 lives were taken. But who was this girl? A tragic life, from hope to the streets. Her name was Sarah Adams. Born in 1997, Sarah had been adopted at just 2 years old by a quiet, elderly couple, Walter and Betty Adams, longtime residents of Summerlin. Walter was a retired church deacon, Betty, a former schoolteacher. They had tried for decades to have children and finally decided to adopt. Sarah had a developmental delay, diagnosed around age 4. Doctors said she'd always need extra help, socially, emotionally, intellectually. But Walter and Betty gave her everything. They dressed her, fed her, walked her to therapy, did all the right things. Walter spent 10 years taking her to specialists, therapists, appointments. Until 2012. That year, Walter suddenly died of a heart attack. Just 3 months later, Betty followed him, pancreatic cancer. Sarah was only 15. And alone. She had no blood relatives. No trust fund. No social worker actively checking in. And she was mentally delayed. They had been renting their home, and when the landlord came to collect rent from a teenage girl who couldn't understand what was happening, he simply told her, "You gotta leave, sweetheart. This house ain't yours." And so, Sarah was on the streets. The ghost of Willow Creek Lane. At first, the neighbors helped. Everyone on Willow Creek knew Sarah. They remembered her walking hand in hand with Betty. They knew her story. So people gave her food, clothes, let her nap on their porches. Some even let her in for lunch or dinner. But at night, she was homeless. Sleeping in backyards, under bushes, or on warm asphalt. Eventually, concerned residents took her to a state-run shelter, hoping she'd finally be safe. But Sarah didn't stay. She kept returning to Willow Creek Lane, the only place she'd ever known as home. For 7 years, Sarah bounced between the shelter and the streets. She would vanish for a few days, maybe a week, and then reappear. By 2019, she was 22. Still mentally delayed, still homeless, but somehow surviving, until July 25, 2019. That was the last time anyone saw her. At first, people thought maybe she had wandered off again, as usual. But 5 days passed. Then 10. Then 2 weeks. Sarah never stayed away that long. A neighborhood smell, and a nightmare confirmed. On July 30th, residents of Willow Creek started complaining about a horrible stench. Something was rotting, something big. The heat was unbearable, 113 degrees Fahrenheit, and even closed windows couldn't keep the smell out. It seeped through vents, crept under doors. The police were called. At first, they assumed it was an animal. But when officers arrived and began searching the vacant lot behind the block, they noticed a shallow ditch near the fence line. One officer peeked in and immediately gagged. Inside was a decomposing female body, bound and dumped like garbage. Later that night, the medical examiner confirmed the worst. It was Sarah Adams. And she was 5 months pregnant. Once the coroner confirmed the body was Sarah Adams, the police had a name, but no suspect. And worse, they had a double murder on their hands, and a victim who couldn't speak for herself. The search begins. Detectives went back through missing person reports from the previous weeks, trying to match the physical description of the decomposed body, female, early 20s, signs of mental delay, pregnant. But there was nothing. No photos matched. No fingerprints led to an ID. So they turned to the neighbors in Willow Creek Lane, the same people who had helped raise Sarah off and on for years. They started talking, sharing stories, timelines, routines. She disappeared a few days before that body was found, one neighbor said. She was always around. Never gone that long. Then another neighbor said something important. Sarah was pregnant. You could see the bump. She didn't really understand it. But she was happy. Matching the description. The police brought the neighbors to the Clark County morgue to identify the body. As soon as they saw her, several broke down in tears. That's her, one said. That's Sarah. With Sarah's identity confirmed, the police shifted their focus. Who got her pregnant? And who would want her dead? The investigation focuses. Detectives canvassed the neighborhood again, this time with tougher questions. Who did Sarah spend time with? Did she have any romantic relationships? Did anyone take a special interest in her? Most neighbors said the same thing. She talked to everyone, but she was just a child in her mind. But one detail stood out. Sarah spent a lot of time at the home of a woman named Angela Martinez, a single mother who lived just a block from where Sarah was found. Angela was known around the neighborhood. Friendly. Loud. A single mom of 6 kids who worked nights as a wedding singer in a mariachi band. Sarah loved Angela. Visited her almost daily. But Angela wasn't always home. Who was home? Angela told detectives. Yeah, Sarah came by a lot. Sometimes I wasn't there, my kids would be. That's when the name Emmett Martinez came up, Angela's eldest son. Born in 1989, Emmett was now 30. Unemployed, mostly stayed home and helped watch his younger siblings. To neighbors, Emmett seemed harmless. Quiet. Kept to himself. Never caused problems. One neighbor said, "That boy never even got a parking ticket. Just a calm guy. Sat outside with his phone. Always polite." But police weren't satisfied with surface impressions. The questions begin. Detectives returned to Angela's house to question her again. "When Sarah came over, and you weren't home, who was here?" Angela hesitated. "Sometimes. Emmett. Or my younger boys. But Emmett's usually home." They asked her directly, "Did you ever see anything unusual between Sarah and Emmett? Anything that didn't feel right?" Angela shook her head. "No. Never. She was like a little sister to him. He looked out for her." But the police weren't convinced. Because Sarah was 5 months pregnant. Someone had abused her trust and her condition. Coming soon, Part 4, The Man in the House. The next logical step was to bring in Emmett for questioning. What they didn't know yet was that Emmett had secrets, and soon, one of them would break the case wide open. By early August 2019, whispers about Emmett Martinez had turned into rumors, then into real suspicion. Everyone in Willow Creek had heard. The police wanted to talk to Emmett. The quiet guy. The one who never raised his voice. That alone was enough to make the neighborhood buzz. The knock on the door. At first, Emmett refused to go. When his mother, Angela, told him the cops were asking for him, he panicked. He stayed in his room. Didn't eat. Didn't speak. He was afraid. 3 days later, detectives knocked on the door and took Emmett in for questioning. Neighbors watched as he was let out in cuffs. "If they're taking him like that, he must have done something," someone whispered. The interrogation. At first, Emmett denied everything. But after hours of questioning, and the pressure mounting, he broke. He confessed. "Yeah. I knew Sarah," he said. "We started talking in 2017. She'd come to our house all the time. My mom was always out working weddings, so it was just me and the kids, and Sarah. In 2018, their conversations turned into something else. By 2019, Sarah was pregnant. 5 months in. I didn't know at first. Then her belly started showing. She didn't even understand what was happening, but I did. A plan to make it go away." Emmett panicked. He knew the child was his. "I thought, if she has the baby, they'll know. My mom will know. The neighbors. Everyone. I can't marry her, she's mentally not okay. I'd go to jail. I had to end it." He planned it for days. On the night of July 25th, he told Sarah to meet him near an empty lot behind the Red Mesa Industrial Park, a secluded patch near the outskirts of Summerlin. Sarah was excited. She thought it was a date. She was smiling, Emmett said. She didn't see it coming. They sat. Talked. Then Emmett suddenly lunged. He strangled her with his bare hands. She tried to scream, but no one was around. Just dirt. Just desert. When she stopped moving, he sat beside her for a while, staring. She looked so peaceful. But I knew I had to get rid of the body. Hiding the crime. He tied her ankles with a nylon cord he had brought in a backpack. Then dragged her body across the dirt, looking for a spot no one would notice. Eventually, he saw a drainage hole, a shallow pit left from an old construction site. He dumped her in. Covered her with a piece of plywood and some debris. Then I went home. Took a shower. ate dinner, slept like it was any other night. He thought he got away with it. But then, the smell. 3 days later, the heat brought the smell. By the 5th day, the body was discovered. Within a week, Emmett was in custody. After his confession, police brought him back to the scene for a crime reenactment. Cameras rolled. Neighbors watched in shock. "He looked like any regular guy," one woman said. "And he killed her like she was nothing." The neighborhood reacts. When news broke that Emmett Martinez had murdered Sarah Adams, the community was horrified. This wasn't just a killing. It was the deliberate silencing of a vulnerable girl. Someone who thought she had a friend. Someone who didn't even understand she was pregnant. News spread fast. Within 24 hours of Emmett Martinez's confession, the story was everywhere. Man confesses to murdering mentally disabled homeless woman in Summerlin. But for the people of Willow Creek Lane, it wasn't just another headline. It was personal. A community mourns. Sarah Adams had no family. No one to speak for her in court. No lawyer hired by her estate. No parents to sit in the front row of the courtroom. But the neighborhood became her family. Within days, residents organized a vigil at the vacant lot where her body was found. Dozens showed up with candles and signs that read, "Justice for Sarah." She trusted him. Protect the vulnerable. Some cried. Some stood silently. Others demanded the maximum sentence. "She was just a girl," one woman said. "She needed help, and instead, someone she trusted ended her life." Emmett Martinez was charged with first-degree murder, felony murder of an unborn child, abuse of a vulnerable adult. His confession was detailed. The evidence was overwhelming. The reenactment video was damning. During the trial, no one came to defend him. Not even his mother, Angela. She never spoke to reporters again. The jury deliberated less than a day. In December 2020, Emmett Martinez was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge called the crime a calculated and cowardly act against a defenseless young woman. "You robbed her of her life. And her child's." The court sees no reason for mercy. Today, a small mural stands near the lot where Sarah was found. Just a simple painting, a young girl with long brown hair, smiling, surrounded by stars. Underneath it, 3 words. Her name was Sarah. We may never know what went through Emmett's mind. But what we do know is this. Sarah Adams trusted people. She smiled at strangers. And when she disappeared, a whole neighborhood remembered her. Because sometimes, justice doesn't come from the courts alone. It comes from people who refuse to forget.